Hello everyone, I'm Peter from What Culture and I've been playing Fumito Ueda's The Last Guardian, or as I now like to call it, oh Jesus Christ, Fenton Simulator 2016. Yeah, get me with the 5-year-old references. A decade in development with incessant release day pushbacks, The Last Guardian, younger brother to Shadow of the Colossus and Ico, long seemed like a promise that would never come into fruition until its appearance at E3 2016 and subsequent almost sudden release. So now that we've all finally got our hands on it, have those 10 years of development left a positive mark, or a nasty smudge of dated obsolescence? Let's find out. Much like its spiritual predecessors, The Last Guardian's narrative, and indeed the makeup of its world as a whole, leave a great deal to the imagination, providing you with enough detail and internal consistency to connect just a few of the dots. And well, cravat me silly and call me Fred, I love the sense of mystery here. Waking up in a cave covered in tattoos with only a man-eating monster for company, your character known simply as The Boy takes it upon himself to unchain the beast that they might both escape the dirty hole. From then on, you'll work together with your new friend Trico in the hopes of finding a way home, but spend much of the first act not really learning anything more about what brought you to the bizarre labyrinth of ruins in the first place. However, despite this initial rather slow development of the game's backstory and overarching plot going forward, the true narrative of The Last Guardian is, in its simplest terms, the tale of a boy and his companion simply soldiering on together, almost irrespective of the setting itself, and that's one of the headline areas in which the game stands out. The bond you build, the sense of companionship, and the number of close shaves you manage to survive are what hold things together across the downtime and give you a reason to press on. Later down the line you will be treated to some pretty substantial cutscenes that start to answer a few of your questions, and by the very end of the game the story does tie up quite neatly, certainly more so than in the previous work of Team Ico, but it's almost become a sideline plot by then, and that's no bad thing. It speaks volumes that you wind up finishing the game more invested in the welfare of your animal companion than the enigmatic story, and I suspect that's what the developers were aiming for anyway. In that respect, The Last Guardian's narrative hits all the right notes. Visually speaking, you've got yourself a bit of a mixed bag here. The art direction in The Last Guardian is overall a real triumph. Trico is stunning, as he should be, he's the main focus of the game, and his animations are the icing on the cake. You'll never tire of watching such an enormous creature leap across the landscape with a bizarre mixture of grace and clumsiness, or idly scratch his neck while you're working out the route ahead. On top of that, the game's lighting engine is beautifully crafted, with crisp shadows and gorgeous bloom effects that aren't overdone, so much so that leaving the interior sections of the environment and tumbling out into the sunlight never ceases to be spectacular in every sense of the word. But therein lies a problem. While the game world, or the nest, is reasonably varied in terms of what it demands from you in a gameplay capacity, the presentation itself can essentially be categorised into sunny grassy exteriors and dingy grey-brown dungeons. That's it. Sorry, Gen Design, you can mix up the platforming as much as you like, but when there are basically only 2 tile sets, you can count your lucky stars that I'm sufficiently invested in the well-being of my Trico to actually stay interested. Worst of all, however, is that the game simply does not seem optimised for a standard PS4. Perhaps things are different on a PS4 Pro, but for those of us who are yet to upgrade, I certainly noticed some glaring frame rate issues. It was hard to pin down the exact cause. Sometimes it seemed to be when Trico was platforming, other times it appeared to be linked to a lightning particle effect, but in any case, things got jittery. For a game that's been in the works for 10 years, I'd have expected a bit more QA for something as basic as frame rate, so as far as visuals are concerned, that left a bit of a sour taste. On the plus side, the soundtrack, for all its grandiose, still boasts a degree of subtlety and familiarity, so at least you can listen to that as you jitter your way through another dark ruin. Great. Sadly, things only go downhill from here. Now, I'm not being a critic for critics' sake. I went into The Last Guardian willing it to be a hit. Even in the face of a lot of negative predictions from the industry, I was optimistic. Sadly, I felt let down. Trying to traverse the landscape with the boy is a major struggle. Ground control to major struggle. And I'm not just talking jumping and grabbing. Even walking over uneven terrain seemed unnecessarily finicky to me. The game does feature that awesome reactive motion that's becoming commonplace in modern gaming, in which a character sticks their arms out and twists their body in response to the environment, the likes of which you see in Uncharted 4 and Assassin's Creed. Unfortunately, the boy seems overly sensitive in that respect. Rubble piles, uneven steps, cladding at the bases of walls and pillars, all of these things feel like obstacles, which is the last thing you need when you've got the actual platforming to consider on top of that. Controlling Trico is equally troublesome in that he doesn't always respond to your commands or decides to carry out the desired action in the wrong spot. Oddly, both of these issues have been revered by some players. They'll tell you that the boy truly moves like a child, tumbling around, not quite a master of his own momentum, and Trico is as stubbornly unresponsive as a cat or ill-trained dog, and I could get behind these opinions if only the issues were more moderate or at least seemed deliberate. Sadly, that's simply not the case. The problems are far too extreme to warrant being labelled as authentic, and to that end, there's no way this was done on purpose. Gaming convention dictates that standing at the foot of a wall, commanding Trico to jump up again and again and again without response, means that Trico is not meant to jump up there. Eventually trying again after 15 minutes of fumbling around elsewhere, only to find that he jumps up without hesitation, just leaves the player feeling well and truly messed around. Even if you genuinely believe that the beast's unresponsiveness is deliberate on the part of the developers, it has to be said that while it's admirable for The Last Guardian to break certain gaming standards, some conventions are in place to maintain flow and ease of use. You have to deviate from those sorts of norms at your own risk, and I don't feel like it's paid off here. Even going beyond the controls, the puzzles themselves are not especially stimulating. You spend much of your time looking for barrels, crates, and levers, usually within the dull aforementioned ruins. As I've said, the gameplay is held together by special scripted moments in which you and Trico make it through a hair-raising near miss and grow closer as a result, but sadly these segments don't come round often enough. It feels as though the cost of getting to one of those A-class cinematic scenes is the long, drawn-out puzzle period preceding it, which you slog through simply for the eventual payoff. Of course, a game should have rare moments of high drama in amongst quieter periods, but it should not be the case that the scripted events are fun and the rest is simply tedious. I should always be enjoying myself. So that's the moaning done. Now here are 3 things you need to know. Firstly, The Last Guardian does not excel as a platformer. If you're going into this hoping for Tomb Raider, Assassins, or Uncharted with a cat-dog-bird companion, you're going to feel let down with the complete lack of precision or innovation when it comes to the ledge hopping segments. Secondly though, the game is, on occasion, visually stunning. If you get invested enough to muddle through the clunky interior segments, you're never far from the reward of a beautiful sunny vista with plenty of space for Trico to really show off where the focus of development seems to have gone. And finally, the one nail that Ueda hits firmly on the head is fortunately the most important. Trico not only looks equal parts charming and majestic, but he is the animal companion we always hoped he would be. Other than the troublesome command mechanics, no balls have been dropped in making him endearing, loyal, and irrefutably lovable. The bond you build with your companion carries this game through something of a mire of other issues, and overall makes it at least worth a look.